Divination is a word or a term that has been around a very long time, and it's a very general term that relates to a set of tools or methods or pathways that intuitive, aware people use as a connecting link or as a connecting channel between everyday ordinary consciousness and thought processes and the higher, quote unquote, higher realm of knowing that always exists in the universe. It's based on the premise that higher universal knowledge is always exists, it's always present, it's always available, provided you can access that stream or that river of information. Okay, so like all things are energy, we know the whole universe is energy. And we also know that when we have the ability, individually, the ability to be like a tuning fork or a radio set, that where we can tune in to a different frequency. It's like turning your radio to that station. And in this case, we're tuning into a flow of universal energy. But that flow of universal energy is not one directional, it's not unidirectional, it's bidirectional, which means that once you're plugged into it, you can have a two-way conversation with that source. And essentially, it's a way to have a conversation with spirit or God or source or universe. You substitute whatever name you want and get a connection. Now, once a connection's established, which virtually any human being can have, so this is not limited to special psychics or special seers or special gurus or special people of unique wisdom. This is available to any human being that is willing to tune their radio to that frequency or to open that conduit to be open to that flow of information. And the information is not just, philosophical or, or metaphysical. It's actually incredibly concrete and very, very specific to the actual life circumstances that you're going through at present, because all information flows through the river. So if you're going through, say, for example, a difficult time in your job and you're wanting to have a breakthrough and to make it easier, the guidance that will help you to get the answers and to help you to do that are always available. They're always there. But if you live outside of that realm and you simply don't know that is available to you, well, then you're going to be living your life without that knowledge, which once you have, can make your life completely, profoundly easier, profoundly more stress-free, profoundly more enjoyable, profoundly more creative, and profoundly more abundant and affluent, abundant, enjoyable. In other words, once you're connected in, you're plugged in, your life becomes what you truly want it to be. Now, you're not always going to receive information that's going to say to you, oh, great, Johnny, you're doing good, just keep it up. Yeah, sometimes you'll get a message like, hey, Johnny, you're doing great, just keep it up, But sometimes you might get a message that says, you're pretty off track here. You need to rethink what you're doing because you're not focusing in the way that is going to get you this result that you want. So we're going to give you like a little tweak or an adjustment so that you can make a course correction. And I think in truth, that's like the biggest, most profound thing, is that people live their lives without realizing that certain course corrections are needed on any path. Like whatever path you're on, there's course corrections, but it goes back to my theme about, the chain is only as strong as your weakest links. And if you don't know your weak links and you don't fix them, then you drive your car off the edge of the cliff and you wonder why. Well, that idea, that concept can be extended to universal knowledge, or being plugged into source and being partnered with source. Because when you're partnered with source, you are getting feedback, you are getting the course corrections, you are plugging in, you are partnering. And this leads me to think, how many people in different religions, those that are rabbis or priests or pastors, that are really sincere and really care and they're not corrupt, what do they preach from their pulpit or in their sermons? They say communicate with God and listen. They actually say, be open to interacting, to connecting, to feeling. When you pray, feel, and be open to receiving, not just asking but be open to receiving. So what are they really saying? They're really saying, have a conversation with God. Now, over the course of hundreds and hundreds and thousands of years, people were indoctrinated into thinking, well, you can't have a conversation with God because you're not worthy, or you're not able, or you're lacking in some way, or you're damaged. God doesn't want to speak to you. So you have to go through the church or the Pope or someone else who needs to act as a go-between for you. Okay? Well, nowadays, people are finally, slowly but surely, finally opening up to the realization that they don't need go-betweens, and they don't need, anyone interceding on their behalf. And they don't have to operate with dogma or fixed beliefs that are limiting or disempowering. They can go directly to source, and they can have conversation directly with source, and use people, that have developed a mastery or a skill in doing that. So what I've done in 40 years, and with regard to the ASTROLOGY, is simply develop this conduit, this pathway, this opening, this portal, to let it flow through. So when you work with me, I'm the messenger. I'm simply a messenger. Divination is the process of connecting. It's to open to the divine. To divinate, divination is the opening to the divine, which is accessible to everyone 24/7, all the time. You don't have to have a special ritual or prayer or service to get connected. You can be walking down Main Street, about to go into the shop for a slice of pizza, and you can talk to God at the same time. You can have a latte at Starbucks and have a conversation with God anytime you want, anywhere you want. So what is so cool about the ASTROLOGY and working with me is not only that you get fantastic, powerful answers and insights to the questions you presently have. Far more important than that is that this opening occurs, the portal occurs. You start becoming used to the idea that you're connected, you're always connected, and you can get guidance whenever you want it. So that brings up kind of an interesting question. Well, if you always are connected and you always have guidance available to you, and you can always have a conversation with source, are you going to take advantage of that? Are you going to use that? Or are you going to still be a lone ranger? Even with God, are you going to be a lone ranger, or are you going to be connected? So if you have one ASTROLOGY session with me and you have mind-blowing experience, and you say, oh my God, I see now that I can be connected whenever I want to get my own answers, and you go out and get your own ASTROLOGY and you become really good at it because you practice and you learn, you get the symbols, et cetera, and you tune in and you feel into it. And now you're there and you're plugged in and you're getting all one. And then you go and teach 1,000 people to do the same thing. Well, great. Then we've achieved our mission. Right? Because what we want is people to wake up. And here's another cool thing I want to add to this that just sort of popped in my mind. A lot of people nowadays are very confused because, understandably, because they receive so much conflicting information from the whole world. Everything is all, millions of deceivers and deception and illusions and misinformation and fake media and all this stuff. And so people live in this sea of total confusion and disorientation, which is understandably very, very stressful. And it drives people completely insane and wacky. Well, what better way is there from eliminating all of that than having your own direct connection to source that can help you sort out what is real and what is true and what is not? And it doesn't matter if you're finding a truth that's, that's universal to everyone, or if the astro dice are giving you an answer that is perfect for you. What difference does it make? The answer is right for you because it's responding to you, knowing your path that you're on, your learning mode, and your process, and your timing element. Okay. I've had experiences with astro dice where they led me down a path which ultimately turned out there was no cheese down that tunnel. And I was quite honestly pissed off, right? I was pissed off. I said, why the hell did you do this, And they came back with a perfectly reasonable explanation, like, well, if we didn't do that, how would you have learned this? Or how would you have learned that, right? So they're teaching and guiding. They're guiding and teaching, all at the same time. There is no quote unquote problem that is too complex, too difficult, too deep, or whatever, in order for there to be an answer. Because in spirit, all things are available within the stream, within the mode. Now, I can tell this really funny story that happened just a few days ago for me with astro dice that is absolutely one of the funniest experiences I've ever had with astro dice. So I'm watching the football game with the San Francisco 49ers, against the Dallas Cowboys, right? And then we had this big divisional game matchup last Sunday, okay? And I'm watching the game, and I'm a really avid, like a super avid 49er fan, right? So at one point in the game, I'm starting to get a little bit concerned about how the game's going, and I'm not feeling really good, and I'm worried. I'm just genuinely worried about how the game's going. So I asked the astro dice, for guidance about it. The astro dice give me a very interesting 3 symbols. They give me the North Node, they give me Aquarius, and they give me a 7. North Node, Aquarius, 7. Okay, so if you break that down, you get North Node means stay on the course. Stay the course. Stay on the course you're on. Don't deviate. Aquarius means the unusual or the unexpected. So essentially saying there will be some unusual or unexpected things will happen. And then the 7 is partnership, which suggests, there's going to be a partner that will help. So I understood when I wrote the dice, I understood the first 2 symbols. I knew, okay, I understand all this, but partner, what the hell is a partner? What partner could possibly come along to help them, right? Okay, so 15 minutes later, after I rolled the astro dice, the Dallas Cowboys commit 2 consecutive penalties. They have 2 consecutive penalties in the game, which become a great benefit to the 49ers. And it was in some respects actually kind of a turning point in the game. And then at that moment, I laughed my head off because the dice were saying that the partner was the Dallas Cowboys. They were the partner. The opposing team was the partner that they partnered to help the 49ers by committing these penalties. So man, there's many stories like that, but that's kind of a really fun one for just over the last week. Talk a little bit about going back to divination, the theme of divination. Over the course of decades and even centuries, uh, very wise, intuitive, aware people have used various methods of divination over a long time to get insights, guidance, and understanding. And of course, Tarot is one of the most well-known, and it goes back, obviously, thousands of years. And in a tarot deck, you have a deck of cards, and you can use them in various ways. Like you can do a whole layout of cards, which is what tarot readers will often use to get a whole picture, like of your year ahead, like what is going to be your year, and what are the lessons, the opportunities, the challenges, the gifts, and the journey for you. So that's one great thing. But the tarot can also be used in a simpler way, like just shuffling the cards and pull a card out and just say to yourself, hey, what is the best way to handle the situation? And you pick one card and it gives you a guidance, from the card, okay? And that's really good. And nowadays, if you go to a various metaphysical bookstore, you'll find a whole variety of different types of decks of cards. There's lots of them around on the market today. There's angel cards, and there's other types of cards. They're all based on the same idea that if you are you're open in mind and heart and spirit, and you really truly sincere in your inquiry, and you have somebody who's knowledgeable about the medium. So you've got somebody who knows the deck of cards or knows the method, then they're going to be able to be the guide or the intermediary or the conduit to help you understand what the answers are that are coming through. But that's only basically a language issue. In other words, all methods of divination require skill in terms of the language of connection. So there's a connecting link between your consciousness and universal consciousness, and that link is the deck of cards or the method being used. Now, back in the 1970s and 1980s, I used the I Ching, and some people, you may have heard of I Ching, which is called the Book of Changes. I used that for years and years and years and years and years before I knew about astrodice. And I would use the pennies and we'd get the hexagram, and it was fantastic. It was amazing. But it would always, you'd have to read the book, you'd have to read the sections in the book, you have to go through quite an elaborate process. Okay, I still loved it, and I still do love it. What the astrodice give that, in my opinion, none of these methods really give, is that they can be very, very specific, very detailed, very concrete, very pragmatic, and they will tell you a course of action. They will tell you an actual mode of thinking and acting and pursuing, and an actual strategy to get from your point A to point B. They're very real. They're very real and very down to earth. Plus the archetypes, the astrological symbols, and the archetypes on the astrodice are very deep and very rich. And each of them contains a range of meanings. And the range of meanings for each symbol is ultimately determined by the context of the question. Very few people understand this. They could interpret the astrodice accurately, but it would have no relevance to your question because they're not taking into account the context, right? So when we do our astrodice events, or when I do work with an individual and the person tells me my question, I'm gonna immediately adjust the meanings, the range of meanings of the symbols, and bring them in to that context or frame what the person is asking. to make it relevant to the person and make it appropriate and accurate to the person. The other thing about Astro Dice that I love is that you can take one answer, one three symbol answer to a question, and you could contemplate it and discuss it and unravel it and get a lot more information from one dice roll than you would ever get from a card in the deck. And you can ask the Astro Dice, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more, or you can ask a different question worded differently. And very, very quickly, within a minute, have 5 different pieces of brilliant, amazing, insightful information that you can get right away. And you can bring all of that knowledge and wisdom together. You can integrate all that to make sense of a complex or challenging situation which is not simplistic. A lot of our situations in life are clearly, they involve a lot of factors. The dice take into account all the factors. They don't give you some philosophical panacea or ephemeral, you know what I mean, or ephemeral vision. Just meditate in the sunshine and, whatever, and, whatever, drink tea and, what I mean, So they're going to respond to your exact situation and give you relevant information. Now, of course, I will acknowledge that because I have many years experience with this, I know how to take the symbols and the meaning and make it relevant to you. That's a skill. That's years of experience. I've learned how to do that. I've also know how to ask you, if you're the inquirer, I know how to ask you questions about the nature of what you're really wanting to know, which sometimes is not fully expressed in your question. Sometimes there's layers underneath that you're not quite aware of or not asking. And by getting clarity about what you really want to know, we're able to work together to ask another type of question that goes deeper and gets more to the heart of the matter. Most people are not in touch with what is the real thing, what's the deeper real thing that they really want to know. So what we do in our sessions, we help you first get clear on what you really want to know, clear on what the real issue is, clear on what the real breakthrough is that you want in your life. What is it that you want to change? What is it you want to be different, to set your life on a different trajectory? Then we ask the Astro Dice when we know, so we're going to get an answer that is absolutely aligned and absolutely precise to what it is you want. Invariably with tarot decks or angel cards or things of this nature, it's general, it's broad, general, it's philosophical. It's not specific, it's not precise. I mean, I get answers with the dice that are not only, saying, something like tough, giving you some tough love, but they tell you how, they tell you specifics, they tell you where you need to be committed, where you need to be responsible, what action you need to take. What is the obstacle in the way that you were previously not seeing, but they're helping you to see? What's the dynamic in a relationship and the level of communication that's needed to create a meaningful breakthrough in a relationship? They will tell you. They will tell you exactly what it is, what it needs to be. They'll get super specific with you if you ask. Sometimes they'll give you general thing first, but if you're willing to ask, if you're willing to engage, then you will get whatever details you need. Now, I'm not going to deny the fact that skilled coaching plays a role in this. Okay, so if you get an answer from the dice and then you go off and do nothing, well, your life is not going to change very much. You know what I mean? But if you do an Astro Dice session with me and you get an answer, and I say to you, well, what are you going to do now about this? And by when are you going to complete? A, B, and C, and are you willing to make a promise about it? Then the dynamic changes profoundly, because now it's in action and there's results that will happen. So we use higher knowledge, esoteric knowledge, divination, combined with solid, down to earth, real, you know, coaching to get the result. Every piece of it's all divine, it's all spirit, it's all universal knowledge. Okay. Sometimes the answers are very delicate and very sensitive, and we have to very Piscean or very watery, and we have to be willing to be immensely patient with things that are difficult or sensitive for you. But the dice will say that. They will tell you to be, to go there, to be there. That they're responding to the situation, as it really is. Okay. I had situations in my life which I've shared where I went through a difficult time with illness, and I was taking a lot of different health supplements, and they've got to be very precise with the doses and what I needed to take and how I needed to change them and where I needed to find things that I didn't know exist, but the dice said they do exist. You got to go find them, go do the research. They'll even say to me, this is crack up. They'll even say to me, you need to go online and do research to find this. It's there. Go and find it. And they'll tell me. Now, where in the tarot deck are you going to find a card that tells you to go to do a Google search? You're not going to find that, right? It might say some very vague, some vague philosophical stuff, but it's not going to drill down to that level of specificity and detail and concreteness. Okay. And it won't get to the heart of the matter of what, is the shift that needs to occur, whether it's beliefs or emotional or pragmatic or action-based or partner-based or relationship. And it will get whatever dimension, whatever area you need to hear and see. We will give you that. So I hope that's valuable there. So the Astro Dice consists of three 12-sided cubes. One of them has the symbols of the planets, one has the symbols of the zodiac signs, and one has numbers from 1 to 12. And when you shake the dice up or you rub them up in your hand, you roll them, you'll get three symbols. And what we do is we interpret the symbols, first of all, separately to understand what each one is saying. And then we work them together. We blend them together. We make sense of them to get an answer to your question. And so the way they work is that, again, in every moment when you have a sincere inquiry, you're opening, what I said earlier, that conduit, and you're inquiring and you're connecting to that source energy in this situation, and the principle of synchronicity applies, and you're going to get guidance that will come through in that way. And you can refine that guidance again by just asking, for more information, if you need it. So that's the mechanism. That's the basic mechanism of Astro Dice. Okay, I could give you any whatever explanation, rational explanation, but the truth of the matter is that the proof is in the pudding, which means that you're going to get more validity and certainty and confidence from the experience of Astro Dice than you're ever going to get from any sort of attempt to explain the phenomenon of how Astro Dice does what it does. And it would be a waste of, I think, personally, a waste of time. So come to our event or meet with me in person or whatever and experience it. And then you reach your own conclusion. If it feels right, it's a path for you to explore further to see where it takes you. The Astro Dice have a way of cutting through layers of things that, how do I say this? They prevent you from wasting time. They they're the antidote to wasted time. They don't have you go over circuitous paths, trying every shiny object to try to get the answer. They will cut through all the layers and get to the heart of the matter very, very quickly. And what has astounded me over the years is how people suffer or struggle for literally years and years with a chronic or perpetual problem, and the astro dice solve the problem in 1 minute. They just give the answer, right away, quickly. So you cut through that. So if you're the type of person that does have a really strong motivation to get real answers that you can really act on, they're going to produce real results. You're not going to waste time. And that could pertain to business or finance, or anything where you want to cut to the chase. The astro dice is a very, very powerful business tool. It's a very powerful business tool. We'll get to the heart of the matter of exactly what is needed for even, let's say, marketing campaigns or sales processes or client populations or any of the above. No matter what area you're looking at, they will tell you, and they know how to talk about technology because, see, divination tools historically, they're not technology based because they were developed thousands of years ago before there was technology. Not so with the astro dice. The astro dice know exactly how to refer you to using technology to solve a problem, and they will tell you that. They will actually tell you that. Okay. So that's pretty rare, to be able to have that.